Hello Animals fans and welcome back to AniLysis. Today we're looking at the Rupert J. Kirk Mental Health Facility. This is something that Adobe Firefly cooked up for me. I don't think it's perfectly representative, but it's got the basics there. So, two-story red brick building with a nice big front entrance. There's a fountain in front of the entrance, a bunch of lawn chairs, and there's trees around it as well. There's also a little fence at the front, but as you'll see from the quotes, it's not quite accurate, but you just got to picture yourself moving a bit further back and seeing a big like chain link fence. Also, there's not really any mesh on the windows, but you know, I can't expect perfection. Adobe Firefly, you tend to be pretty good. Yeah, like it. So why does it look like this, and what is the point of the Rupert J. Kirk facility? We're going to answer all these questions now. The background, the context for why we're here. It comes from book 17, The Underground, and that's the only book it's in, as far as I remember. I'm 99% certain. Rachel and the other Animorphs have saved a chap called George Edelman, whose Yerk has gone insane due to oatmeal addiction. Yes, that's the plot. And because he's going mad, because this Yerk's addicted to this stuff and it's sending him a bit haywire, he jumps out of this window to basically try to put an end to it all, or that's what it seems on the surface. But effectively, the guy is probably on the outside, he looks schizophrenic, but what it actually is the Yerk taking over sometimes and then he's in control other times. But to any layperson who isn't a controller, he probably looks like a schizophrenic. And so he gets sent to a mental health facility. And the Animorphs are wondering what is actually going on here, because Rachel's lawyer mother, Naomi, hears George Edelman talking about Yerks. So of course the Animorphs have to go to investigate, which leads them to the Rupert J. Kirk Mental Health Facility, where George Edelman is being... held isn't the right word, is it? That's where he's staying at the moment as he goes through his mental health treatment. So that's the context of why they are there. Let's look at the quotes as they approach the building and have a good look at what this place is and what it looks like. So that's the nut house, Marco said with satisfaction as we all gazed up the hill at the pleasant looking but weirdly quiet two-story structure. I always suspected I'd end up here. We were gathered near the Rupert J. Kirk State Mental Health Facility. It was 2 floors of red brick. There was a little fountain just outside the front door, and lots of shade trees and lawn chairs sitting out on the grass. It could have been an old folks' home, or a slightly aged apartment building, except for the fact that it was encircled by a high chain link fence, and there were 3 strands of barbed wire atop that fence, and there was heavy wire mesh on the windows. But aside from that, it looked perfectly nice. Who else has the willies? Cassie wondered. I held up my hand. The feeling I get when I reach the school door every day, Jake muttered. School, not house. What's the difference when you get right down to it? Marco asked philosophically. Dumb rules and bad food in both places. Jake jerked his head to indicate we should move along. We were on the sidewalk across the street, lurking along a row of parked cars. And what's weird is, I swear the sun went behind a cloud the moment we reached the facility. We walked along, with Tobias flitting from tree to tree overhead. Easy enough to bust in, Jake observed. A fence, a door, big deal. Not like the Fenestra mansion or the Yerk pool. Easy. Yeah, I agreed. So we get in, we find this George Edelman and try to figure out if he knows something about the Yerks. Then we leave Marco behind and get out. So that is the Animorphs approaching the Rupert J. Kirk Mental Health Facility, or for its full name, State Mental Health Facility. And you can probably tell why I've taken this image from Adobe Firefly. Because you've got the red brick building, it's 2 stories, the fountain, the lawn chairs on the grass, the trees. Just picture yourself stepping back and there's a big high chain link fence around this whole thing, and I think that's pretty close to what it appears on the outside. But there is one extra bit. As we move along, how do the Animorphs get into the building? Well, they end up going into the kitchens with like boxes of bananas. How does that happen? A big truck pulls up to the facility, and we get a few more descriptions of the site from this happening. So let's take a quick look at that. Just then, like an answer to our prayers, a truck drove up the driveway and around to the far side of the facility. Was that a food truck? Jake asked. Tobias, can you go take a look? Tobias flapped away and came back in less than a minute. It's a food delivery. The truck looks pretty big, and it's dark in the back. Jake nodded. Okay, I don't think more than 3 of us should go. We morph to bird, fly into the truck, morph to human, then to cockroach. We hide in some of the food and they carry us right in. Rachel, this is your guy. I mean, you saved him, so you're in. I'll go. Tobias doesn't have a useful morph and acts is too obvious when he passes through his Andalite phase. So it's Marco and Cassie. So it's Marco or Cassie. We flipped a coin. Marco won. Then we explained to Axe what it meant to flip a coin. It took 20 minutes for us to find a place to morph into seagulls. Seagulls were less noticeable than birds of prey. Unfortunately, the place we found was a dumpster. It was an empty dumpster, but still. Because it's a mental health facility, there's a lot of innocent people in there, so this is why Jake decides we go in less aggressive manner. In a less aggressive manner. So they find a dumpster outside of the facility and morph seagull, in which they'll fly into the truck, which is parked up on probably a loading bay, and that food then gets taken into the kitchen. So that is all the description of the outside we have. So now let's bring out MS Paint and from what we have, draw the area around the facility, because that's what the facility looks like. Let's draw the area around it. Let's draw the building like that. So RJK for Rupert J. Kirk Mental Health Facility. And there's the fountain. And the place has got like a smattering of trees. I know Medi bollocks, they don't look like proper trees, but frick's sake. There you go, trees. And the place is surrounded... Hold on, I need to make everything a bit smaller, don't I? What I'm picturing... This orange is the road. I'm picturing the road system going like this. So in places I've worked in the past and been, there's always like a side route for deliveries to come in. And say, for example, this is the loading bay over here. So the truck, let's draw the truck. That's the truck there. I know it's not great, but what can you do, eh? There's the truck that they end up going in. And I imagine the dumpster's probably around the loading bay as well. This is where like all that sort of stuff happens. So the dumpster can be there. So that's where the animals eventually go. Because they were looking around for 20 minutes. So it's not going to be in freaking plain sight. It's not going to be here, for example. The animals are on the sidewalk across the street. And there's a bunch of cars along here. I'm not going to go into detail. I'll just draw boxes. So I'm not even going to draw circles now. That's how lazy I'm getting. Right, so the Animorphs are here. And then beside all these parked cars on the opposite side of the street, which is on top of a hill. So let's put in those contour lines, and it sort of goes like that. The contour lines, because it's on a hill, you know how contour lines work. So the closer they are together, the steeper the gradient. Come on, keep up. Yeah, regarding the far, because it says a truck drove up the driveway and around to the far side of the facility. So theoretically, actually, the parking bay could be here. But either way, it's not at the front. So that's what we're seeing. It took the animals 20 minutes to find it. So that seems to be the general layout of the area around the facility. I'm pretty happy with that. It's relatively simple, but honestly, we don't need much more because that's all that's given to us and it's all it needs to be. It's not like a super secretive place out in the middle of nowhere. It's on the side of a street, on a hill, like that. What more can you ask for? One of the things from the quotes we looked at earlier, which was slightly out of place, I know, was Marco comparing, and Jake comparing it to the school. I think that does look quite schoolish. And they're looking at this thing from over the street in our picture. They're over here looking at it thinking, wow, that looks like the school. And Marco says, yeah, these places are actually quite similar, you know, you get the similar vibe from it, and also the food is just as bad in both places. And what I have to ask Marco is, how do you know? How does Marco, or the authors for that matter, know what mental health facility food tastes like? Either way, it's compared to a school, and that's all we can really see about the outside. And speaking of food, and bad tasting food, they end up going into the kitchen, and this is where we start to get some of the descriptions of the insides of the building. Let's have a look. We laughed a nervous kind of laugh and continued zooming across the rubber baseboard in the facility's kitchen. Then, an opening in the wall, and we were in. I was grateful to be out of the harsh light, and away from so many shoes. There's a rubber baseboard in the kitchen. That's basically it for the kitchen description. They walk into the back of this building. They get taken in the kitchen as cockroaches, hence why there's not much description, because what can you say? The only other thing we can imply is that it's a busy kitchen. So the place is obviously up and running. Perhaps it's around lunchtime, so all the cooks and the chef are probably walking around in this kitchen. Do they have chefs in mental health facilities, or is it just like a series of cooks? I don't know. Don't know how it works. In America in general, I probably don't know how it works. Then again, I have watched Kitchen Nightmares US. Fun show. Not as good as the British version, mind you. Less drama shoved down your throat. Find me an episode of Kitchen Nightmares where they're not interviewing someone who then suddenly start tearing up and crying, I'm going to lose my job. I mean, I get it. Being on Kitchen Nightmares is a bit tear-worthy, but my God, do they hype it up. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, they go into the kitchen, find a hole that leads into the walls of this facility. And of course, since it's a red brick facility, the bit that they're going into is probably sided on one side with plasterboard and wood, and then on the other side is probably brick. But there's little more description. The only thing we get left is finding out where George Edelman's room is, relatively, and then descriptions about the bathroom. But let's have a look at where George Edelman is in this building. I've spotted the guy. It was Cassie's thought-speak voice. I was puzzled. What are you doing? Axe and I morphed to Harriet and Osprey. We've been looking in the windows, trying to spot Mr. Edelman. I have him. Second floor, above the kitchen. Then maybe 20 feet along the building. He's in a room with 3 other patients. They're wearing hospital gowns and slippers. They're watching TV. Let's picture this as the back of the facility. Up a story. There's the kitchen. Edelman's probably around here. On our picture here, there's your kitchen area where the loading dock is. And Edelman is above the kitchen and slightly to the side. So yeah, probably around there on the back side of the building. That's what is implied from all this. He seems to be in maybe a gathering room because he's watching TV with, was it 3 other patients, or was he one of the 3? Yeah, it's 3 other patients. So there's 4 patients in there watching TV. So it must be like a little break room. And he's in these pajamas and yeah, picture a mental health, not like the Animals TV show mental health facility. Picture a mental health facility in your mind and a little break room where the patients are just sitting there watching TV. Yeah, so that's what George Edelman's doing. But of course the animals can't talk to him in there, so they end up in the room next to this facility. And it turns out to be a bathroom. And here are the quotes describing said room. Hey Cassie, Axe, Tobias, do you see a roach sitting on a window? Axe answered, yes, I see you. You are in a small room just alongside the room where the human named Edelman is. The squares of ceramic tile grew rapidly smaller. I shot up and up, like Jack's magic bean sprout or something. He sat on the edge of the tub. I leaned against the sink and tried to look like a very youthful 25-year-old with no shoes. He looked out through the dirty bathroom window with its heavy wire mesh. So this bathroom is next to this break room. And it's got a ceramic tile floor, it's got a bathtub, it's basically just a normal bathroom. Except the windows have got wire mesh on it. So that's basically all we get for the interior layout of this facility. And that's basically it. There's one more quote that I want to go over, and it comes from the end of the underground, where we find out that Rachel has broken into this facility. He's gone, ran away. But what's bizarre is how it happened. They're claiming a grizzly bear calmly walked in, knocked the doors down. Now, I'm not a fan of book 17, The Underground, and this is one of the reasons why. Because we had this whole build-up near the start of the book where Jake's saying there are innocent people in there, we don't want to scare any of them, so we're going to go in subversively. We're not going to come in all guns blazing. By the end of the book, Rachel's like, nah, screw that, I'm just going to knock the doors down. Screw the other patients, screw the mental health people, screw the staff, I'm just going to ruin their whole day just so I can let George Edelman out so he can spend his life homeless rather than being in a facility that cares for him. Honestly, I don't know what happened with you, book. That aside, the point here is that by the end of it, the doors of this facility were knocked down. A grizzly bear went in, trashed the place up a bit and let George Edelman escape. Probably severely mentally damaging a lot of the patients in the process. But then again, in this book, the authors make a point of, why would you believe somebody who is in a mental health institute? They're totally not trustworthy. Honestly, the authors have a lot to be ashamed of in this book. It's pretty bad. And this is coming from me. You know, go on Twitter, they'll say I'm basically Hitler. This is coming from me now, saying, authors, you were a bit overboard in this one with the political incorrectness. You tone it down a bit. I do actually wonder if the reissues from 2011 got this far, and if Chris Grine or another graphic novel person did up to book 17, whether they would change this. Because, yeah, this is coming from me. It's over. Even the TV series did it as well. They went overboard with the nut house stuff and people with mental health problems not being trustworthy. Like, you can't believe a thing they say. Why would you trust that person? And then, obviously, Rachel breaking at the end, probably severely damaging a lot of them. It's pretty shocking. And book, yeah, go on the freaking floor for that. Christ almighty. At least book 37 did... Actually, maybe book 7 did go that far, in a way. Anyway, that's it. That's the facility. That's the interior. We've looked at the design of the exterior and the surrounding landscape. We don't know where it is in relation to the rest of the city or town, but that's something we could probably get a better idea of towards the end of the AniLysis series, because once we've covered everything about the town, we're going to do a big map. And it's a long way off, I know, because there's a lot of analyses to get through, but by the end of it, we're going to do a big town map, and we'll find a place to put the Rupert J. Kirk State Mental Health Facility. But I'm pretty sure it's on the town or along the outskirts of it. It's not like some isolated place out in the woods somewhere. It's on the edge of the town at the very least. But there's one more thing, the most important thing that we've missed throughout this whole AniLysis. The whole thing. Do you know what it is? Who the bollock is Rupert J. Kirk? I searched on Google, and there's no... They name drop celebrities and famous people a lot in this book series. But Rupert J. Kirk didn't turn up any noticeable, probably the better word for it, results. As in, there was no one around in the 90s called Rupert J. Kirk, or in American history. That was Rupert J. Kirk. I couldn't find anybody. I found 2 people online. And let's have a look. I searched on Google for Rupert Kirk. And they both originated in England. They were both born in England. At first I was a bit confused because you've got Rupert Kirk. I couldn't find anyone specifically Rupert J. Kirk. But I'm just going with Rupert Kirk for now because it's all I can find. We've got to trace this down to somebody. Who is this building named after? Is it Rupert Kirk, Esquire? Born about, not accurate, well, maybe, but it's an approximate, 1777 in Woodford, Essex. Died in 1850, aged 73, in Greystanes Prospect, New South Wales, Australia. Now, firstly, that's an unfortunate name for a place. Greystanes. Doesn't sound like the sort of place I want to go. He was born in England, the greatest nation on earth, and then buggered off to Australia. One thing I am looking up here is when Britain basically sent their prisoners to Australia. And that explains a lot, firstly. But between 1788 and 1868, more than 162,000 convicts were transported to Australia. The convicts were transported as punishment for crimes committed in Britain and Ireland. In Australia, their lives were hard as they helped build the young colony. So they went over as basically slaves to Australia. 1788 to 1868. There's nothing in these records to indicate that Rupert Kirk, or the other Rupert Kirk we're going to look at, were criminals and went over there as their punishment. Obviously, it's within the right time period, but there's no evidence of that. And as we look at the other evidence here, it makes it even more clear. Rupert Kirk was in the army. He was in the Army Medical Corps. This website gives quite a lot of information, actually. So here's the stuff about when he died. If you go back further, it gives details on like when he got married, deaths of members of the family. He got married to a lady called Jane Newby, who then became, of course, Jane Kirk. And they had a son, Rupert Kirk Esquire Jr. Maybe that's the J we're talking about. So if you just say Rupert Jr. Kirk, Rupert J. Kirk, maybe that's our guy. But before we move on to Rupert Jr., I want to point out this bit here. A great discussion is now going on in England on the proper classification of sponges. And much light has been thrown upon the subject by specimens forwarded from New Holland, the shores of which are known to abound in sponges of great delicacy and beauty. Dr. Johnston, in his History of British Sponges, describes a new genus which he calls Ducidii. The species D. Kirkii was sent from Sydney by Rupert Kirk Esquire, whose zeal in collecting is already well known. At a meeting of the Microscopical Society held November 24th, a paper was read by J.S. Bowerbank Esquire on 3 new species of sponge containing some new forms of organisation. Mr. Kirk's was one of them, and according to the report of the meeting, it appears to be of a very curious structure, fibrous and coralloid in appearance, and having numerous grains of sand separately encysted in the cartilaginous matter of the skeleton. I'm going to stop there, honestly. But that was in 1842, 8 years before the passing of Rupert Kirk. Let's see if that species is still banging about. Kirkii. It might have actually changed to Ducidii. Looking at this, let's firstly look at what happened to the genus there. So Ducidii Johnston might be close, because that's obviously the Johnston we saw about in there. It does appear to have changed, they appear to have changed the name of the genus. So the original description comes from Johnston, 1842, A History of British Sponges and Lithophytes. Taxonomic citation, taxonomic edit, right. No, that can't be it. Yep, okay, so Ducidii was unaccepted. The accepted name was Ducidii. Okay, so we're cracking on with this investigation. God, this reminds me of university. So, it would be Ducidii Kirkii. And here we go. Oh, no. Genus transfer. So, Chondropsis Kirkii. Right. Status accepted. Species. Excellent. So that's the one we're looking for. Marine species traits. Here we go. Atlas of Living Australia. So of course it's Australian. See, it's all tying together. It's all tying together. An error has occurred. Balls. GBIF. See if that has what we're looking for. Here we go. 74 occurrences with images. There. That's our guy. There it is. Real-time investigation. Velma, eat your knob off. I didn't actually plan to go through this investigation, but there we go. So where were we? That's all tied into this. So Rupert Rupert Kirk has a sponge named after him. He was in the Army Medical Corps and he immigrated from England to Australia. One thing we can also say is Bombay Medical Service, that's in India. Now that connects to son of Rupert Kirk, Rupert Kirk Jr. or Rupert J. Kirk. This guy is probably even more interesting actually. So born in 1806, passed away in 1852. He didn't live for very long, but he was born in London, in Stepney in London. So he died at just 45 years of age, which isn't very old, especially compared to his father, which is unfortunate. He actually died in India. So unlike his father, yeah, he died in India actually just 2 years after his father's death, which is very sad. He was also in the Army Medical Corps, so followed in his father's footsteps. Did he have the same interest in sponges? No. He was an artiste. And for proof, yeah, Rupert Kirk, 1806 to 1852, links back to this, where was I? This page here. So it's all connected. And where is it? Yeah. Rupert Kirk, 1806 to 1852. And here are his artworks. Actually, he's very good. He's very, very good. Yeah. So, excellent. Maybe this is why the place was named after him. Maybe the person who created the building thought, oh, one of my favourite artists is Rupert Kirk, and it inspired the building of this mental health facility or whatever it was at the time, what it was first built for. Yeah, this is pretty good. Yeah. So obviously he served in the military, and in his spare time he did a lot of painting. And then finally, there is a picture. A painting. Obviously back then they didn't have cameras. And somebody actually drew Rupert Kirk. And there he is. So he's going to be on the thumbnail as well as... Can we move this bit down, please? It looks like later in life because his hair looks a bit like mine. And he's got a big old honker on his face. So it's probably later on in his life, around the time he was doing his paintings, because I think a lot of his paintings were, God, what year were they? 1841, 41, 41, 42. Yeah, so towards the end of his life. So it all seems to round off quite nicely. What it's got to do with a mental health facility in America, who knows? But that's where we can just make that final little jump of speculation. But apart from that, there's a history of Rupert Kirk, Jr. and Senior. Both very interesting, actually, even though there's very, very little on them. But that's life. It's interesting. It's fun. If you just look in the corners and crevices of life, you find some fun. That's the motto we're going to take from today. Anyway, let's spin the wheel to find our next. And we're up to book 20. All the way down to book 20. What's it going to be? Bing, diddy, bing, ging, 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 gong. Bing, 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 bow, ba, ba. What are we going to have for the next AniLysis? It's going to be... Ping, ping, ping. Subvisa 19. I don't actually remember where Subvisa 19 is from, but we're going to freaking do them. Okay? And not in a sexual manner. Stop it. You've been warned. Especially you, Horsk. God damn. Subvisa 19, next AniLysis. Join us for that. We're going to have a blast, okay? Thank you very much for watching, and spare a thought for the... Actually, yeah, one thing I did forget to point out is on one of these pages somewhere, there's comments saying, oh, that's my relative. So there are still people around today who remember old Rupert Kirk, or not remember him personally, but know that they are descended from Rupert Kirk. So his genes live on, much like the sponges he discovered. Thank you, Rupert Kirk. Don't know you, mate. You died a long time ago, but bloody hell, thinking of you in this moment. Long live your memory, and the memory of Rupert Kirk Jr. as well. I might even look at some more artwork. Go take a look at it yourself, and think about the Rupert Kirks for just a moment. And remember the joy they brought to those around them, and to those who still find joy in their lives today. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you for the next AniLysis. See you somewhere else in the Animos universe. Ta-ra!